Welcome to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hello again, and welcome to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, episode 42. And if you are new here, please go back to the very beginning of the episode playlist, and you shall be able to get the actual reads from the very beginning if you wish. But for today's episode, on Tuesday's reads, I'm going to be reading everyone a brave deed out of the book of Brave Deeds. So, this story is titled Sir Philip Sidney. From the Boys' Book of Heroes by Helena Peake. On the 30th of August, 1586, Sidney went with his uncle to invest Dulsberg, a fortress on the river Isle. This place was important because it opened the way to Zutphen, and if Zutphen were once taken, the English and Dutch would command the river. Dulsberg was gained, and Zutphen soon after surrounded, like Leicester, guarding it by water, and Sir Philip Sidney, Count Louis of Nassau, and Sir John of Norris, guarding it by land. News was brought to the English camp that a large supply of food was at a place called Deventer, not far off, and Leicester was resolved that it should not be brought into the town, whilst the garrison were equally resolved to receive it. On the morning of the 22nd of September, Sidney advanced to the walls of Zutphen with only 200 men. Before he set out, he was clad in complete armor, but meeting the marshal of the camp only lightly armed, he took off some of the armor that covered his legs. There was a mist at the time he set out, but when he had galloped quite close to the town, it dispersed, and he found 1,000 of the enemy in readiness to receive him. The fight soon began, and his horse was killed under him, and he mounted another. The battle was furious, and the Spaniards, although they were 5 times as many as the English, were totally routed. In the last charge, Sir Philip was wounded severely in the thigh. His horse, being very mettlesome, rushed furiously from the battlefield, and carried him 1.5 miles, wounded and bleeding, to the spot where Leicester stood. When he lay in his anguish on the field, a bottle of water was brought to him, and he might quench his thirst, but seeing a soldier near him, wounded like himself, look wistfully at it, he ordered it to be carried to him, saying, "This man's necessity is greater than mine." His friends and his soldiers were overcome with grief when his state became known. At the sight of his sufferings, they almost forgot the glory of his triumph. Yet amidst all his pain, he never ceased declaring that as long as he lived, his life was the Queen's and not his own, and that his friends ought not to be discouraged. They laid him gently on his uncle's barge. Slowly it glided down the river to Arnheim, in Gelderland, and whilst he lay patiently in it, he heard to express the hope that his wound was not mortal, and that he might yet have time to become holier before he died. Day after day he lay in great pain, but talking kindly the while to the friends who grouped lovingly around him and tended by his wife. Walsingham's daughter, who had hastened to Arnheim as soon as she heard tidings of his disaster, when he felt he could only live a little time longer, he made his confession of Christian faith, and settled his earthly affairs, remembering in his will all those whom he had loved. He took a tender farewell of his brother Robert, telling him to love his memory and cherish his friends, and to govern his own will by the word of his Creator. And then, having called for music, while sweet strains filled the chamber silent with coming day, the spirit passed from this world. Blessed are the dead, which die in the Lord. Such were the words inscribed on his coffin, and the perfectness of his character, the regard in which men held him, cannot be better expressed than in the language of the old chronicle, which says, "As his life was most worthy, so his end was most godly. The love men bore him left fame behind him. His friendly courtesy to many procured him goodwill of all." And that was the tale of Sir Philip Sidney. So, if you liked that and you found it educational, or you found it very enjoyable, would you please like, subscribe, and share, as it would help this channel out. And I hope you have a good rest tonight. Good night, loves.